It is almost preposterous on my part to advocate your loyalty to Franklin D. Roosevelt. The events of the past 3 weeks are eloquent in themselves. Our laborers are being restored to remunerative operation. Our factories are open. The prices of our commodities have been raised. And why, may I ask you? Simply because the money changers are being driven from the temple. Simply because the outworn gold standard which held you and myself in bondage for generations has evaporated into the mists of the past. The great advantages obtained through the National Recovery Act are more or less insignificant compared to the greater advantages which the future holds for us once the fulfillment of Franklin Roosevelt's monetary policy will become history. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the day, despite all opposition to the contrary, that you remain steadfast behind the one man who can save this civilization of ours. It is either Roosevelt or ruin.
That he retain his customary standard of living while he forces the laboring men of America by his cruel exploitation onto a wage level and a standard level that is just this side of the Bolshevik.
Of Christianity which abhors communism. In the name of patriotism which loved America to carry it on to victory, I ask you if you will rise in your places and pledge with me to restore America to the Americans.
The Warburg, the Morgan, and the Kempmen. All the nation is one. This is what I so often refer to as the concentration of wealth in the hands of a few. This is the system of modern capitalism, which from governmental analysis proves beyond dispute or question that in it there is no just sharing of profits in this nation. Remember that you're an American first. Remember that you're only Democrats, or Republicans, or progressives, or partisans, second.
One Catholic priest, for the first time in American history, is seriously involved in national politics.
Some are unpopular, but God hates the hypocrite.
At his shrine of the Little Flower near Detroit converge elements of a mighty political power. A power that grows with every name added to the 12 million already in his letter files. With every handshake that adds another individual to his colossal following, which he has welded into the most potent political lobby this country has ever known. The single-voiced National Union for Social Justice.
Coughlin, Detroit, from whose tower, the home of radio station WJR, have emanated many of the broadcasts of the Reverend Charles E. Coughlin, the voice of thought and sympathy from the heart of Michigan's greatest city. As the clocks in Detroit chime for and those throughout the rest of the country chime their corresponding hours, some 30 million listeners gather at their radios to hear the voice of the Reverend Charles E. Coughlin, the fighting priest, as he greets them with his cheery,
Good afternoon, my friends. During the course of this address, it will be my privilege to disclose information which seldom levels down through ordinary channels to the general public. It is my duty as your spokesman to present it to you in this emergency, to the end that it will guide you in your decisions and stimulate you in your actions. I know that everyone in this audience is of one mind on this point, that we want more democracy in financial matters
and less plutocracy in matters of exploitation. For at the bottom of this depression, it's a money question. At the bottom of poverty, of unemployment, of confiscation, it's a money question. In 1776, Washington and Jefferson and their compatriots had hurled at them lies and charges and the epithet of revolutionary. Their lands were overtaxed, their laborers and farmers had been exploited, their liberties had been denied, their right to free speech and a petition had been scoffed at. They were called revolutionary. So are you.
It was the largest political rally ever held in American history. Over 150,000 people turned out at Chicago's Riverview Park to hear the famous radio priest, Father Charles E. Coughlin. People from throughout the area, the state, and nearby states came to get a close glimpse of the man they considered to be their leader and their hero. People wanted to get close to Father Coughlin, to touch his hand. Politicians nationwide were shocked at his support.
The United States, that Congress has the right to coin, issue, and regulate the value of money. That's good Americanism, and it's good enough for me. Every politician today in the Democratic or Republican ranks who sits upon one of the thrones of the mighty doesn't believe in that part of the Constitution. They don't want to believe in that part of the Constitution. They're not even Americans, these so-called Democrats and Republicans. They might say that's radical, but the real radical is the Simon Legree of high finance who turns his lash about your shoulders and exploits from your pocketbook its last penny. We try to become hard-boiled with Harding. We try to stay out of war with Woodrow. And we try to write a new deal with Franklin Delano. We're through with the sham battle of politicians, and now we're on our own. Therefore, under your congressional district presidents, form your battalions, take up the shield of your defense, unsheathe the sword of your truth, and carry on in Illinois so that the communists, on the one hand, cannot scourge us, and that the modern capitalists, on the other, cannot plague us.
The President, with all due respect, that not one of those soldiers or sailor boys who long last week spent their bonus for buying clothes for their children, dresses for their wives, paying bills to the doctor and butcher and elsewhere, and who today feel like children who've had their toys taken from them, broken-hearted. These soldiers and sailors in no wise caused the war, which crimsoned the rivers and the streams of France with blood. Nevertheless, they who cared not for just competition, they who regarded money as their god and their fellow beings as their cannon fodder, still hold sway with their advice in telling the President to veto the Patman bonus plan.
say that it was not the soldiers alone who were vetoed this afternoon. It was the American people.
1776, Washington and Jefferson and their compatriots had hurled at them lies and charges and the epithet of revolutionary. Their lands were overtaxed, their laborers and farmers had been exploited, their liberties had been denied, their right to free speech and a petition had been scoffed at. They were called revolutionary. So are you. Thank General Johnson, the cream puff general, the chocolate soldier, for classifying you with Washington and Jefferson and the men of Lexington and Concord. Ladies and gentlemen, I sincerely thank you from the bottom of my heart for the honor which you have conferred upon me. Your acclamation has made me feel very small indeed, simply because I have some small appreciation of the tremendous responsibility which is mine. I shall do my best to be your leader. One thing I do know, I will never turn my back upon you, cost what it may, and will never sell you out for any patronage.
The Depression still waxed strong as the powers of deflation reached out to confiscate homes, to capture farms, and to keep that ever-marching army of jobless upon our streets, wondering when God in his mercy would lift his hand. I dared you and challenged you to organize so that the people, if not the president, would drive the money changers from the temple, and you did it. My dear friends, that among other things in the National Union for Social Justice, we are Christian insofar as we believe in Christ's principle of love your neighbor as yourself, and with that principle, I challenge every Jew in this nation to tell me that he does not believe in it. There is no need of communizing all the factories and the fields and the forests and the mines under a new kind of God made of flesh and blood and clay and hatred. When men become so prideful that they believe their destiny is to rewrite the eternal law of God, it's time for their fellow citizens to rise up in their wrath and through the agency of ballots and not bullets to relegate them to the pages of the past. God bless you. At last, the common people have got together.
we have an organization whereby, under the leadership which I can afford, and under the excellent loyalty which you can contribute, we will succeed.
Children and shelterless men and women still knocked at our door for a pittance. The Depression still waxed strong as the powers of deflation reached out to confiscate homes, to capture farms, and to keep that ever-marching army of jobless upon our streets, wondering when God in his mercy would lift his hand. Then came letters pouring into the offices of the National Union asking for action. I dared you and challenged you to organize so that the people, if not the president, would drive the money changers from the temple, and you did it. Who then is the inflationist? Roosevelt or the National Union? I saw this savagery of our civilization, where the mightier had risen up to exploit the weaker, where wealth was concentrated in the hands of a few. All this savagery that dwelt in the luxury of palaces, dwelt in the luxury of edibles and of wearables, this savagery that permitted those who believed in Christianity and in the brotherhood of mankind and in the brotherhood of Christ to see millions of our fellow citizens starving in the midst of plenty. Are you going to leave this country worse than you found it, or are you going to fight for your children? Divided we fall. We're Americans first, forgetting that we ever were Democrats or ever were Republicans. God bless you.